Rolling Stone magazine calls the song the third greatest song ever and describes it as having a serene melody and a pillowy chord progression. Rolling Stone uses the odd words, they call it an enduring hymn of solace and promise. President Jimmy Carter, in his travels to over 125 countries, says that this song is played as often as the national anthems of the various countries he visits. And sometimes I'll find myself singing along to it. It's a lovely tune, it has a sweet sentiment, but I also find it a bit sorrowful and troubling. You'll probably know the words. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try, no hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do, nothing to kill or die for, no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one, and I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. John Lennon's words, it's a ballad of a longing for peace, and I get that. Sometimes I sing along with it. It's a ballad of fighting ceased, and I love that. But for a minute, imagine there is no heaven. And that everyone lived for today. Imagine for a moment that we are nothing more than the most advanced biological creatures on the planet, and intelligent, but living only for today, because literally we're nothing more than flesh and blood, because there is no soul of sorts within us, that we are simply an amazing conglomeration of biochemical responses. If I hear the song as intended, and as John Lennon spoke about it, soul is an illusion, and I don't want to live in a world without soul. I don't want to live in a world without religion. I do long for peace, but what does peace matter in a world without soul? What does peace matter if all we are is what we see, flesh and blood? Why not grab all we can right here, right now, and not care a whit about those we don't know personally? Because they don't have soul either. And because they don't have anything more than any animal has. I don't want to live without heaven, or religion, or soul, because that begins to rob me of peace. Especially when the storms come, and today we hear about the storm that Jesus and his disciples experience, except they experience it differently. Because the disciples in the boat are experiencing it as flesh and blood human beings, and Jesus is experiencing it as flesh and blood and soul. The winds are howling, the waves are crashing, the thunder's booming, the lightning's flashing. It is a metaphor for life's roughest challenges, and if we've been through those roughest challenges, it's no surprise to us that when they see Jesus, they're afraid again, that they think he's a ghost, that they think this is a sure sign that their ship, that their boat is going to go down. Because that's what it feels like when we're in the storm. That there is no heaven, that things are over, that our worries and anxieties will sweep over us and come crashing down upon us. But imagine that there is soul. Imagine that there is heaven. For a moment, Peter imagined that. He said, Jesus, let me just walk on the water with you. And Peter stepped out of the boat, and as soon as his imagination was taken over by the waves and the storms and the realities of flesh and blood, he began to sink. And we know that feeling too. Together, we are part of a baptism. We are part of proclaiming, imagine there is a heaven. Imagine we're more than flesh and blood. Imagine that Jesus walks with us through life's storms. And today, I will have the blessing blessed opportunity to hold little Raven. Raven Delight. And if I remember right, Delight was the name of a great-great-grandma. Yeah. Who had soul. Who shared with others her faith and her hope and her positive experience of the world and her belief that things would come together for good and that God would help see people through. We've gathered around Raven in prayer for a few weeks now. She was with her mom, Amanda, in the hospital. And during that time, Amanda's blood pressure was going up and down and all over the place, and Amanda was in serious shape. And Raven was unborn, and yet it wasn't clear if she would survive or not. The hope was she would. But these were difficult times and delicate times, and in fact, today as we come to baptism, I believe, are we baptizing Raven just a bit before her due date? We're baptizing her a bit before her due date, and she's home from the hospital, and she is with us. We gathered around her in prayer, and her family in prayer, through the prayers of this church, through emails that we sent out reminding people to pray, letting people know there was a prayer need. We gathered by being present there. Granny popped in. Jean Granny works at Ascension, and she said, "We're here for you, and you know what? You've got the best doctors, and you've got people I know and trust that are caring for you." And that's a powerful thing, to know that there are people that someone you know and trust, knows and trusts, taking care of you. That connection was made. And it was important because we are people of soul. Imagining there was a heaven, imagining there was a God to be strength and healing and hope for a family makes a difference, not because we think God's some puppeteer and will make everything happen our way, but because it reminds us that we are connected and that we are surrounded by a loving care, that whatever happens, God will be near. And God will seek to be strength, and God will seek to carry us through, and we won't be abandoned because God will give us others to walk with us. When we feel that, something begins to sing in our soul, and I think it's called hope. A calm comes amidst the storms, and there's this whisper that we aren't alone. And that Jesus, if we start to slip and fall, Jesus, like he grabbed onto Peter, will grab onto us and hold us steady until the storm ceases. Imagine there is a heaven. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, but the strength to carry us through. We have a message to share with the world. We have a message to share with Raven about soul, about being valuable beyond her comprehension, about being loved beyond her knowing. We claim a part of that Imagine song, whether John Lennon is happy about it or not. We claim a part of it. And we whisper today and in our tomorrows through ongoing prayer and through things like Sunday school and Vacation Bible School and having the nursery open. We whisper to Raven, you may say we're dreamers, but we're not the only ones, and we hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live on. We are the people who imagine God's best. Not God's absence, but God's mighty presence, God's still small voice, the peace in the storm, Jesus' hand reaching out to hold us. Every time we join in prayer for us, because every time we imagine there is a heaven, it changes something within us. And the hope begins to sing in our souls again. So let the hope sing in your souls again. Until the storms cease.